Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my channel. My name is Joanna. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you get something out of this energetic exchange, even if it's something for you to think about. My job, if you will, is to essentially help you know your mind. Because when you understand how your mind works, you can create virtually anything. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you would like to feel more empowered and more in charge of your life, do stick around and just see what comes to you, what you resonate with. If something does not make sense to you, just let it go. Your body is your own compass. It'll resonate with certain energy. It won't resonate with others. It just means that just whatever you're not resonating with is not for you right now. And that's perfectly okay. But because you're here, I already know that there's going to be something for you that will be presented that would at least make you think about something. Okay. So I hope that for you. I would love for you to click the notification button, like the channel, subscribe if you wish, make comments. This helps the YouTube algorithm to keep putting these videos for people to see. Otherwise, it's not seen as much. And I happen to believe that the more people are in their own power, the more we will create a much better life. That's just what I believe. For those of you who are coming back, thank you so much. Again, without you, I wouldn't do this. When I do this, I plug into home, where home is, and it's just frequency. So every time I do these transmissions, I'm tapping into this higher frequency. It's not better or it's not about better. It's just higher frequency. And that makes me feel so evolved. So thank you for participating in this journey with me. The reason why I'm calling these transmissions, because 95% of the time I have no idea what I'm going to say. It's unbeknownst to me what we will be talking about. I have a basic idea, but then it can go far left. So I never really know what's going to be coming out of my mouth. So I have to do a lot of trusting, which is what I'm learning to do in this lifetime a lot. With that said, there's few things I want to run by you in terms of what is happening in terms of our evolution as human beings. Even though you probably have an idea, I feel like it requires you to kind of give us the basic goods. So the basic goods are simply this: humanity is going through a massive restructure, which is a revolution of an inner space. Humanity is going through a massive restructure of their internal systems, which means things are turning upside down on the inside. What does that mean? It means a massive shift of perspective. To be a lower vibrating human and to be a higher vibrating human is a matter of perspectives. It's a matter of vibration. The higher perspective we have, the higher we vibrate. When we have the highest perspective of love, when we see everything through the eyes of love, we are high on lights. So most humans are not in that space. This is essentially what's happening. And as part of this change, part of the transformation, several things have to take place. Number one, old structures have to go. Doesn't matter how much we resist for the new to come in. The new is coming, and we have to let go of the old. So there is a resistance of letting go of the old right now that's really amplified. And when we resist, we create a lot of friction. Friction is usually uncomfortable. When we create friction, it's uncomfortable. We tend to shy away from things that are uncomfortable. So as we go through this process of essentially our structures dismantling, in the process of that dismantling, if you will, we are beginning to see a certain truth that we were not able to see before. And the reason why we were not able to see this truth before is because we were not ready to see the bigger truth. Why? Because it has to do with stability. In other words, too big of a jump would create too much confusion, and that may make people very, very scared. In other words, we are shifting in how we perceive our reality. And we perceive our reality from inside, not from outside, from inside. So humanity is shifting in terms of how it perceives its reality. Humanity is starting to remember that they are not just a human body. They are beginning to remember, starting to remember that they are infinitely more. And with that inner knowing comes tremendous release of power. When one realizes that they're so much more powerful than they ever thought they were. And it's a massive shift of perspective. Imagine tomorrow you woke up and everything outside of you was exactly the same, but the only thing that changed was how you see everything, and you see everything completely different. Everything is the same, yet nothing is the same. It's very confusing. So there is a lot of confusion happening in life right now. Now, the confusion is what was supposed to happen. We often ask for directions. We ask for directions. When we ask for directions, the universe gives us directions. So you are likely on this channel because you're seeking certain information and you've requested from the universe to share this information with you. And of course, the universe will not do anything for you. The universe is always going to support you. So there is something in this transmission that is meant to support you in whatever it is that you're asking for right now. Okay, this is funny. Maybe you're asking about why champagne? How does that make any sense? Okay, this is supposed to be a joke to somebody. I have no idea who, but I'm supposed to ask you this question. Hey, how was the cheap champagne? So I don't know who you are, if you bought a cheap champagne, but this feels very specific. So it's for someone there. And the question is, hey, how was the cheap champagne or whatever it was? If you resonate with this message, please do drop me a line below because I always find that incredibly amazing. But anyway, as we're going through this massive change, there is going to be a lot more confusion happening. So if you were to wake up tomorrow and everything was the same, but everything you were looking at felt and seemed different to you now, that would be very confusing because you would not know. This feeling of confusion is one of what's real. They're saying your reality is based on your style, in other words. Depending where you're at in terms of how you see the bigger picture, you will experience your reality accordingly. So if you were to wake up tomorrow and didn't know anything around you, yet everything was the same, but somehow everything was different, that would be very frightening, right? So we don't want that too often because we don't want a whole bunch of scared people running around being totally confused and petrified because they don't know what's going on. We don't want to do that. However, there's a potential for some people thinking they're going crazy. So I certainly have asked myself that question more than once. But when you begin to see reality, when you begin to actually see the bigger picture, the deeper reality, it's very hard to explain. But when you get to a moment or many moments where you have this aha moment where all of a sudden everything is changed, it's that kind of frequency. You didn't tell yourself something just clicked. And I feel like we're going to have these moments of clicking more often this year in 2026, because I'm recording this in March 2025. So why is it important for me to say this? Because everything is speeding up, including our manifestation. Okay. So you might actually find yourself thinking you're going crazy. It happens when your reality drastically shifts. But chances are you're not going crazy. You're just beginning to see the bigger picture for the very first time in your conscious life. And that can be and often is very threatening to the ego. Does that make sense? So they wanted me to talk about manifesting. And I'm like, okay, well, everybody knows about manifesting. Most people might know what manifesting is, but most people don't really understand what has to take place in order to manifest. For example, just thinking about something is not enough when you have a negative belief about something. Your negative belief is almost always going to win. So you have to uproot your belief system. So one of the things I wrote is, if you're here watching this channel, you are here to master your mind. And you might say to me, well, Joanna, why would I care? Let's think about it. What does it mean to master your mind? To master your mind means to essentially live life free according to how you want it and the way you see fit. In other words, to master your mind means you have mastered your mind. And since your entire experience happens within your own mind, when you master your mind, you are the master of your experience. You are very masterful at creating experiences. That's why I believe, as Joanna, the masters who are like Yeshua and beings like that, they no longer feel the need to come to planet Earth because they've mastered their mind. I mean, they could if they want to, but it's like there's nothing it's nothing, they squeeze the last juice out of the lemon. Let's do it that way. You know what? Someone like Yeshua not only believed, understood, he was the embodiment of knowing who he was, knowing his mind. And we are all here in some shape or form moving towards that. And everybody is on their own different trajectory. But if you're here, you are likely here to master your mind, and likely it is to a great extent in this lifetime. So there's a lot of shifts happening in this lifetime for anybody. Okay, so let me just back up for a second. In order for us to manifest what we want, there's few things that have to take place. First and foremost, we need to understand what is manifestation. Manifestation is essentially a projection of energy. What you focus on, what you intend, and what you focus on becomes your reality. Thoughts matter because thoughts become matter eventually. Thoughts matter because thoughts become matter eventually. And since we create in our minds, with our minds, and our thoughts come from our minds, what this is basically saying is that our thoughts are very powerful to the point where they actually are responsible for our creation of 3D human experience. So to put it a different way, the more you think about something, the more you give it energy, the more you feed it with the right corresponding energy, it's almost impossible for you to not have it experienced in your 3D life. It may not come in the package that you're expecting, but there's always an associated feeling with whatever it is that we're trying to manifest. The universe is going to help you match that feeling by corresponding 3D circumstances. So it behooves us to know what we think. In other words, thoughts are very powerful. Thoughts become manifest. We better make sure we understand and know the process of us having our thoughts. If we have a whole bunch of thoughts running rampant based on scarcity or negativity, these thoughts become powerful manifesting tools. The more we put energy into it, the more we think about it, the more we magnify its potential of becoming a 3D experience. So if we are constantly putting out things such as, I'm not enough, that thought will produce or help to produce situations where that belief will be reflected back to you. You are with somebody, for example, and they leave you, and you take that rejection very hard, and you tell yourself, here, there it is. I knew it. I'm not good enough. Oh, no, honey. It has nothing to do with you not being good enough. Oh, you are more than good enough. Here's the question. Do you see it? Do you believe it? Likely the answer is no. But anyway, whatever shortcomings you have about yourself, whatever limitations you've put on yourself, this is the year to let that go. How? Retraining your mind and how your mind thinks. It's a tremendous undertaking. It does not take place overnight. In fact, to master your mind takes lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. We are all very masterful beings. We just don't know it because we are under the assumptions that we are humans and we are small and we are insignificant and everything in between. Okay, that's just programming. Okay. So remember I was talking earlier about letting go of the old. It's also letting go of the old programming, especially letting go of the old programming. Why is it important? Because unless we implement new programming, we cannot have a new experience because we will only experience based on what we believe. Well, Joanna, I believe all I want and I didn't get it. Well, maybe you really didn't believe. Maybe you told yourself I believe, you believe, but maybe in actuality, what it is that you wanted, you're deathly afraid of, usually comes from an unconscious part of you. If you're trying to be prosperous, if you're trying to be abundant, you need to find your own inner abundance. You need to see your worth. If you don't see your own worth, you will be looking for validation from the outside to show you and tell you that you have worth. No, you need to own your good first and foremost. You will also be looking for frequent compliments and people feeding you, feeling good, because you're not going to feel good about yourself. So you're going to depend on others to help you feel good or to make you feel good. Bad idea. Do people contribute to help you feel good? Absolutely. And people contribute to make you feel shitty. Either way, bottom line is this. You need to see your own goods. You need to see your own worth. You need to own it. Then you can share. Otherwise, what you are sharing is the part of you that you believe you're lacking. And if that's what you're sharing, the part of you that believe you're lacking, the universe has to match you. It's going to present you situations that in your view are going to be lacking. They will feel lacking because that's the energy we're projecting. And all of it starts with the mind. We all have extremely powerful minds. It's something that to this day, nobody truly understands. We understand layers and aspects and various things, yes, but we truly don't understand what this thing mind is. Because mind has no edges. It's the four. God, it's universe. That's what mind is. But anyway, that is on a different topic altogether. So why is it important to know about how manifestation works? Because it helps us understand how our mind works. When we begin to clearly see how our mind works, we are in a position to change our mind. If we're doing something continually to ourselves without even knowing that we are doing it, which is unconsciously, we're going to be just running in circles. We have to be able to shift. And we are all in a process of shifting vibrations. And from a more 3D perspective, simply means we're at the threshold of experiencing something very brand new. But in order for each of one of us to experience this brand new grandness, I just feel this openness. We have to let go of the limitations. We have to let go of the fear-based thinking. We have to let go of the idea that there is lack. The universe is full of everything, including lack. So if you believe in lack, you will experience more lack. You cannot evade this law. It's a universal law. Your life is a reflection of what your inner life is. I'm not saying you caused the war in some different country, but you have an aspect of war within you. Release the need to fight yourself. Let go of the war inside of you and have more peace in your life and in your heart. And then look at the world and see how different world will look to you. Okay. There's probably nothing greater than having a sense of peace, because when we have a sense of peace, we are just being. We're not trying to be, we're not rushing to be, we're just being. Do you imagine to just be in the moment? Can you imagine what's that to just be? It's very difficult for me to be in those moments, very rarely, but it is something I strive for. Being in the moment, being in the now is what? It's kind of funny because it should be the simplest thing in the world, but it is the most challenging. Here's why. Because our minds are in control, or we don't have control of our minds. Simple as that. We don't control our minds. So wait a second, Joanna. If I don't control my own mind, who controls my mind? Now you're asking the right questions. Because precisely, who controls your mind? If it's not you, then or what? You're here to master your mind. You have to know how the mind works. And if you're here to make a difference in the world, which you are, otherwise you wouldn't be here, you are here partly to bring greater sense of awareness and consciousness into this world. And for you to bring that something with you, you have to have it. So there is a higher consciousness within you living right now. And you are in the process of accessing it in this moment in your own unique individual way. So if you woke up tomorrow and your entire existence was all of a sudden different than one from the day before, what would you do? One of the first questions you would ask is, who am I? I would suggest a different question. If you have no idea, I would suggest you ask yourself this question. Who do I choose to be going forward? Who do I choose to be going forward? Hey, dude, I'm just going to be me. And you just be you. Powerful mind means powerful results. And I've said this earlier. We're all powerful masters. We are masters at this forgetting thing, because what we are doing is we are forgetting our true essence in order to perceive ourselves as an ego. Otherwise, the universe, the consciousness itself doesn't know itself. It has to go through different experience. Part of your journey being here on planet Earth is to once again remember who you are. The reason why I'm saying once again is because we've done it before. It takes many, many lifetimes to finally get to a space where we are embodying Christ consciousness, higher consciousness. It takes because it's energetic, it takes a long time. But again, like I was saying this year, if you're watching this, this is a pivotal lifetime for you. And year 2025, that's beside the point, but it's very pivotal. So if you are here, I already know that you are here to help make changes, big ones. The kind of changes that are actually required of you right now to go through your own big changes. Big changes can feel scary, but they don't have to be scary. If we were going through big changes, but we realized that at the end of those changes, there is something profoundly, immensely more, better, fantastic. If we knew that, would we be scared of change as much? Not even that. No. So what we need to do is we need to expect the best. You're going through a change right now, and I know you are, because we all are. Rather than asking yourself the question, who am I? Ask yourself the question, who am I choosing to be? Or who do I choose to be going forward? Who do I choose to experience me as? Because there's various versions of you in us potentials, and you can tap into any of those potentials anytime you want. You are currently tapping into this particular version of you, but there are other versions of you. Imagine that. So imagine wherever you are struggling right now in this lifetime, let's say you're struggling with confidence, so you don't have a lot of confidence, pretty standard. There is a part of you that feels very not confident. There is also a part of you that feels the extreme opposite, which is confident. That part must exist because it is a universal law. It's just different sides of the scale. You are tapping into, thank you, you are identifying yourself as someone who is not confident. Okay. So there is a confident part also, but you're not tapping into right now. So it would be good for you to, for example, in a meditation, connect with the part of you that is confident, that feels really good about him or herself, and have a chat with that part of you in a meditative state and ask, what is required of you for you to feel confident, all that stuff. Let that version of you tell you, because you can communicate with that version of you. Here's one thing I would tell you. That version, if it's truly a higher version and not your ego, will never give you information that is fear-based. If you get information that's fear-based, that is not your a higher self, that is an imposter. That is your ego. Okay. Because your higher self is always wiser. Okay? And the version that you are wanting to experience, let's say a confident version, is much closer to your true self. Can you communicate with your own soul? Yes, you can. You do it all the time. It's called through intuition. Whoever asked that question, you do it all the time. Sometimes you hear it, sometimes you don't want to hear it. Sometimes I don't want to hear you. Sometimes like, please tell me more, tell me more. We have different types of relationship with our intuition, but that's how our soul apparently communicates with us. And our souls see things from a grander perspective. Our soul's perspective is very, very big. So we will often get a lot of perspectives from our soul that are much bigger than the ones we have as human beings. So can you talk to your soul, to your higher self? You do all the time. You may not believe you do. You may not think you do. You may not believe in this concept, although if you're here, I'm pretty sure you do. Yes, you can not only can you communicate with your soul, you can communicate with God. In fact, you do all the time. That's the irony. You beg, you beg, you plead, you sing, you think about whatever. Because God is everywhere, that's a hard concept to grasp. Because God is everywhere, because it's a force, it's freaking everywhere. It's in you, outside of you, in front of you, behind you, underneath you, on top of you. It's everywhere. You cannot escape God. Boom. That's it. And that equation includes you. You are part of that. Yes, you can talk with your soul. And yes, feel free to communicate with God. Whatever name you want to give it. I, as Joanna, don't really like the name God because it's got too much bullshit around it. I prefer to call it source. I have had conversations with source, and I do kind of sort of a regular basis. And I will tell you, yes, you could think that I'm crazy. Absolutely. If that's the case, I'll own I'm crazy because it's pretty good. Those conversations are ones that I will never forget. I just know. I don't need to prove it to anybody. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. When you realize that you're talking to God, you're going to know. Your mind is going to say, am I crazy? Yeah, that's what the mind wants to do because the ego is not trained to believe that. But the answer is unequivocally yes, you can talk to God. And in fact, you do all the time, and it hears you. She hears you, feels you all the time. You don't have to beg for its presence. It's impossible for you not to be in existence without it inside of you. Are you God per se? You are part of God. You carry the essence of God, which means when you carry the essence of God within you, you carry everything that God represents within you too. And no, God does not punish. That's ego. Okay. So if you have a punishing God, I'm sorry, I had to tell you, she doesn't judge. But hey, if you like that kind of God, if it serves you, by all means, it's up to you. So I don't know how we got on this tangent about talking to quote unquote God or source, but I think that's really important. That's one of the things about program. We are energetic beings, you can call it light, having a human experience. Most of us identify with our humanness as that's who we are. No, that's just our soul's experience. You are a soul. You are an energy. Energy has no edges, cannot be bound. It's just energy. It just is. You beyond your physical body cannot be defined because you are everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. It's very hard for the human brain to grasp because it defies reality as we know it. When ego takes on its shape, you identify that as you. You think you're your ego. No, your ego is not you. Your ego is part of you, but it's not you. And your ego oftentimes messes a lot with your mind. And that's because you give all your power to your ego. When something has access to something powerful, that something uses something powerful to create certain results. But what if the ego is very short-sighted? It has very limited view, but it has a very powerful tool called the mind to work with. Sometimes it creates problems. Doesn't mean to do it, but it just doesn't know how to operate this thing called the mind. So What does it mean to have your ego not be in control of your mind? First and foremost, identify that you have an ego. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's your flavor. As part of you being a flavor, you have edges. Okay. And you identify yourself as that. You have edges. So by having edges, that means you are limited. Okay. That's your understanding of yourself as a human being, but you are unlimited. You're just having a limiting experience because this is what your soul wants. Okay. So why did we get to this point? I have no idea, but let me just keep going. Let's talk about rules for manifesting. I think everybody knows, but again, there's layers and layers to manifestation. First and foremost, I saw the other day that was themed manifestation or law of attraction is a lie. And I thought, no, I wish people didn't do that because that's just misleading people. Oh, law of manifestation or manifestation works like a charm. Once you see and understand the power of your mind, it all has to do with understanding how the mind works. So to say that the power of law of attraction or manifestation doesn't work or it's a lie, it's misleading people because you are manifesting things all the time. We're just mostly not conscious of it. It's impossible for us not to be manifesting. We're doing it all the time, but we're not doing it consciously. So we could say that we are creating a world we don't know, and we are the ones creating because you are creating unconsciously. That's the whole idea about becoming mind masters. It's to know how to use your minds, to understand your mind. So first and foremost, rule number one, manifesting, according to my team, never stagnate in creating what you want. If you do stagnate, maybe you don't want it after all. That was an important point because it was like, okay, if you want something, go for it. Don't make excuses. Don't tell yourself you can't, because generally speaking, it's not that you can't, it's that you won't, which is fine, but there's a distinction here. If you really want something and there's an incentive for you to get it, you're going to move mountains. So if you're stagnating with creating whatever it is that you want, that you likely don't want it. You have it in some other version already, or you're just not really that interested, not invested. If you're not invested, don't bother intending it. Waste of breath. That's what it feels like the message says. If you are wanting to experience a great love in your life, examine your beliefs around the idea of love and being loved, people loving you. If you have some old perceptions, some skewed ideas that you are not lovable or that you are not worthy of receiving love, you will be experiencing that each and every time. Doesn't matter how many partners you change. You have to change what you see within you. You have to find your own value. So, or to manifest a beautiful relationship, then you have to make the steps. Your part, make the steps to do so. First step number one is, like I said, reevaluate your beliefs and ideas around love, being worthy of love, etc., etc. And notice any limiting beliefs and deal with those. Otherwise, you're going to be self-sabotaging yourself essentially. Okay. Number two, never tell yourself you can't do something. Instead, give yourself permission to do something different. So oftentimes we say, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. 9 times out of 10, it's not because we can't. It's because we're not willing to make the effort that is required. And we have our reasons. It's too uncomfortable. It requires a move. It requires me to give up something. It requires me to change, whatever it is. So it's not that we can't. It's more that we won't. And this kind of self-honesty is very important because what it does, it brings us to a space and reminds us where our power is. So when you say to yourself, I can't, you are presuming that something outside of you is saying, no, you can't, stop, boom. No, you're the one, likely more than anything, are the ones saying no to yourself. Examine your reasons. Examine your reasons. And give yourself permission to do something different. Number 3, never see yourself as small in terms of your power. That is disempowering to you. we naturally have different things within us that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. I would say that probably vast majority of people have those experiences because they represent a lot of turmoil. And that, working through turmoil can be really cathartic to a person's growth. It is, but first and foremost, it's to recognize when we keep ourselves down, when we keep ourselves small, and ask ourselves this question: okay, if I see myself as small, and I mean that in a negative way, that, because you think you're small, you're not going to go for it, you're not going to take a risk, you're going to be afraid of rejection, all that wonderful stuff that we humans don't want to feel. So if you have a belief that you are not good enough, if you are not worthy, you need to examine those beliefs. You need to really honestly ask the question, is me feeling unworthy or being unworthy, is that still true for me? Because maybe it's changed. You've just learned to identify with it so much, you don't know how to be without it. So never see yourself as small in terms of your power. And that is disempowering to you. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. For example, someone who is in an authority position doesn't mean that they are your authority. They're not your authority. You give them permission so that they become your authority, but they are not your authority. There's a message in there. So there's a message for some of you in terms of seeing you're small and either not seeing yourself as an authority or giving power away to an authority. That's going to come up right now, right? So if you have given power to authority before, you were younger and you had to, and you just learned that one of the best ways for you to make sense out of this world and to survive is to give your power away, to please other people. That's likely to come up right now for a lot of people because we are learning how to live from a space of calmness versus a space of anxiety. Number 4, think big and act out even bigger. Think big and act out even bigger. Dream big. Always dream big. No dreams are ever too big or too small. They are simply potentials. So anything you think about or dream about is a potential. And since there is infinite number of potentials, there is no edges or limits to what you can think. There's no limits on what you can think. The only limit on what you can think, the only thing that limits what you think is your programming. Your ability to think will be affected by your programming. Okay. And if you think only according to what you believe, then you are in a box. We're all in boxes. We all think based on what we believe. At least that's what they're telling me. But the message here is this. Nothing is ever too small. Nothing is ever too big as far as ideas, dreams, things we want to experience. It's all a potential. And because it's a potential, it means it already exists somewhere in an energetic form. Our job is to connect with that. Connect with that. Whatever it is, I'll give you an example. Let's say one of your dreams is to own a home, a beautiful, spectacular home. Okay. Create that home in your mind and make it be as spectacular as possible. And notice and know that this is a house sometime from now. Notice how your body reacts to it. Your body is going to do two things. It's going to reject it right away. It's going to contract slightly, or you're going to feel like it's welcoming. Likely, if you are wanting something, it is because you don't have it yet. Because you don't have it yet, there is likelihood that there is something standing in the way of you having it. So if you want a big house, but you have some scarcity thinking or beliefs that you don't deserve a house like that, doesn't matter how much you want it, you're not going to generate the right energy in order for you to have it because it's not aligned with your truth. Law of attraction, right? So you can think about a beautiful house all you want. If the deep aspect of you doesn't believe it, or you have some limited perceptions around the idea of home, maybe you grew up in a very chaotic home and maybe Like maybe you were in an abusive home. Your idea of home is going to be very different than someone who grew up with peaceful parents and toys and Christmas tree and just basically little heaven. Very different experiences, both homes, but both very different experiences. And if that is your association with home, you will not want to, your body was going to want to reject it because you don't want to feel that. That is not what you want. To really experience the opposite, you have to let go of the old. That's what we're being asked for right now. So I gave this example as a house, but it could be applied into anything. It's just basically shifting our thoughts and perspectives. Number 4 or 5. Again, never tell yourself that you cannot do something. Instead, tell yourself that you won't. So this is what we talked about earlier. Oftentimes when we say, I can't, it's not that we actually can't. It's we're not willing to. We're not willing to do it. And we have our reasons. Sometimes those reasons are very valid. But the reason why the message is repeated is to keep reminding you where your power is. If you tell yourself that you can't, it is implied that something outside of you, some other authority tells you whether you can or you can't. Okay. Instead, when you realize that you are the one making that choice, for whatever reason, when you realize that you are making that choice, you are no longer the victim to your circumstances. You are more in charge of your life. You can still do the same thing, but you do it from a space of empowerment. It's a very different energy. If you want to hold yourself back because it feels good, damn it, it feels good to hold myself back, so I'm going to keep doing it. More power to you. The difference is you're doing it because you're choosing it constantly. You are saying, yes, I want this experience and I'm going to create that experience. Versus creating it, but you don't even realize that you're the one that's actually making it happen. Okay? Ego doesn't like that. Number 5, never neglect your mind. Know what is in your mind and why, because that is what you are projecting. Never neglect your mind. Know what is in your mind and why, because that is what you are projecting. So if you have a whole bunch of hate thoughts about yourself in your head, but they're so deeply programmed, you don't even know half the time that you're doing it. This is what you are sending out to the universe as a message. Or why would you want to do that? Because the universe has to meet you based on your own level, right? So if you have a whole lot of hate thoughts about you, you're going to bring about likely an experience where you're going to either experience hatred, you believe that people are hating you, or you have massive issues around rejection, and the list goes on. Why on earth would you want to feel those things? Nobody does. But in fact, this is what you're feeling on the inside. So there's some unprocessed emotions from early school years for some of you. Rejection, very common thing, but rejection is amplified because as a manifestor, you are an energy generator. The more energy you generate towards something, the more you are helping to make that something become your reality. When you are holding on to negative beliefs, when you are holding on to limiting beliefs, you still have this, generating this power, but you are not as powerful at expressing this power. So what you do is you tend to hold yourself back. Holding yourself back is really not a great idea for various reasons. One, doesn't feel so good. The problem with that is though, when we've done it for so long, when we suppressed ourselves for so long, we didn't even know we're doing it because it's so unconscious. When we hold ourselves back, it just becomes a thing that we do every day without even knowing that we are holding ourselves back. But yes, we are holding ourselves back. Why would we want to? Why would you want to hold yourself back? Okay. Yes, you may not feel safe. Okay. Let's say you felt safe. Would you want to hold yourself back? Well, no, not really, because then I knew I would be okay. Exactly. What if you can get to that space right now where you know that not only are you going to be okay, but to remember that you are more than okay right now in this moment. You are more than enough in this moment. In this moment, everything is in this moment, in this moment. You have other moments, yes, but in this moment right now, find that side inside you that's peaceful. This energy is going to help you as well. Remember, what wants to be expressed out into the world is more peace. In order for us to experience more outer peace, we have to express more peace from inside out. The less war we have inside of ourselves, the more peace we will feel within. What's outside, it's inside. What's above, still below. That sort of thing. We cannot experience something that we are not in alignment with. If you're not in alignment with experiencing greater love, you're going to miss it. You're not going to get it. It's not going to happen. Or you will bring it to you and you will reject it. So we talked about never neglecting your mind. Number 6, thoughts matter because thoughts become matter eventually. It is very common for most people to not even recognize what they're thinking about 90% of the time, probably 95, myself included. And it is beautiful that we have this mind that's unconscious that we don't have to think about, because you don't need to know how your cells work in order for them to work. When we continue to practice things that we don't want to experience, we cannot have a change. So we have to, in order for us to experience something different in the world, we have to project that change from inside out. So be mindful of your thoughts. What do you often think about? What's on your mind a lot? Are you often anxious because you feel like you're not going to be safe, you're not going to be taken care of? There's something there and it's sitting on your chest and it's causing anxiety. That anxiety is a source of a certain conflict, and this inner conflict creates powerful thoughts. So being anxious goes hand in hand with having certain types of thoughts. Notice your thoughts, because they are responsible for your experience. Your thoughts affect your experience. Your thoughts create your experience. So if you hold a lot of negative thoughts about you, you cannot possibly feel positive. You have to change your programming. You have to change the disc. Realize that you're a powerful being and your thoughts affect matter. Your thoughts affect matter. And because your mind is what creates your thoughts, it's really important for you to know your mind. Number 7, pave your own paths and be guided by your inner knowing or your inner compass. Everyone has inner knowing. Everyone. Because everyone has a soul. Everyone has a soul. Let's put it this way. If you have a soul, and you do, trust me, you are being guided. You are being guided by your soul. It can come in form of intuition, inner whispers, feeling, things that you see. It could come as an audible voice, although that's not very common. It comes in various different ways. Your job is to listen to your inner knowing. Don't ignore your inner knowing. Your inner knowing is never incorrect, but your inner knowing has a different view on life. Your inner knowing doesn't care about timelines. So your inner knowing may be giving you guidance that's good for you, but it may not be the right timing. That's up to you to figure out. That doesn't mean don't trust your intuition, but trust your intuition and couple it with well-reasoned mind. A mind that is calm and mind that's not chaotic. Because ideally, you want to work with your soul and with your mind. You want to work with your soul for higher perspective and greater opportunities. And you want to work with your mind because you want to know how to implement it in your 3D life. You need both, not one or the other. Most people are usually more dominant in one, which is the mind thinking. So pave your own path and be guided by your inner knowing and inner compass. Everybody has it. So your job is to listen. Okay. I have a few cards that I pulled, and this is to depict what's happening on an energetic level for everybody. So what is humanity going through right now? I thought that was interesting. Truth be told, what's your truth? What is your truth right now about what's going on in the world? Okay. What do you believe is happening with you? What is your truth about why you're here? What is your truth or deep belief about your own power? What is your truth or belief about today's economy? Wherever you are. Well, in other words, what's real for you? Don't judge it. It's real for you. And be really real with what is real for you. Because when you know what is real for you, you know where you stand. It's important for us to know where we stand. If we don't know where we stand, it creates confusion and it creates feeling of unsafety. When we don't know where we stand, we have a feeling of unsafety. No one likes to feel unsafe. No one. Why? Because when we feel unsafe, we automatically move to fight or flight. When we feel unsafe, we go into survival mode. Okay. And that's fear-based survival mode. It's not that survival is bad. It's when we go into survival mode, it's because it's fear-based. It's like we're trying to protect ourselves. Most people live in fear most of the time. In fact, all the time, and they don't even know it because it's become such a normal thing for them. They don't even realize that this is what's taking place. So knowing truth is a very important question, a really big one. The second one, the message is we're learning how to take our masks off. We're learning how to take our masks off. We all wear masks every morning or every day. That doesn't mean mask is a bad thing. This is not, sometimes you need a certain mask. The mask that I'm talking about is the one that does not allow you to be transparent and be honest and be integral and just be authentic. If you were to take off all your masks, would you still feel okay? Or would you be scared? Would you be afraid? What would you be afraid of? Rejection. Why? Why are you afraid of rejection? Rejection is a big wound, the mother wound. So there is some inner child wounding, inner child healing that would be good for some of you to look into. Okay. Second message is it's all about sense of belonging. It's called the tribe. But when it shows up in reverse, it's about making sure that we don't live life out of our own, that we don't, basically the message is, let's all make sure that we play with integrity. Do you have a tendency to, actually the message is, I can't find the wording, but the message simply is, thank you, be aware of compromising your integrity in order to belong. Do you dim your light or change yourself so others will accept you in their tribe? This is a little bit of a warning to not do that. And that's not to say that we don't compromise the situations. Of course we do. But if you compromise to the point where you can't be yourself, then you might as well be alone because nobody's really going to know you. They're not going to know you. They're going to know the mask you're putting on. And here's what I'm here to say, if this resonates with you. You're worth knowing. Did you know that? You are worth knowing. You are worth knowing, all of you. I'm not saying air your dirty laundry everywhere, but you're worth knowing. You're worth being around with. Your company is very appreciated. I don't know who I'm talking to. So how about this? See yourself the way you want other people to see you. See yourself the way you want your other people to see you. If you want people to see you as successful, see yourself as successful. Now, some of you will say, well, I don't have success. Here's what I'm being guided to say. Nonsense. You are so successful at doing this life thing. You had no idea. Of course you're successful. You are just creating unconsciously. Most of your experiences can be traced back to your deeply held belief systems that are somewhere in your story. usually in childhood years. So if sense of belonging is something that you're after, if you're seeking who you are, if you're seeking to belong, make sure that you don't do it out of your own integrity. In other words, don't compromise your own integrity, because you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy because that's a lot of resisting you. You're resisting you. And that takes a toll on your energetic body. And it's quite frankly, because you're always thinking that you have to do something, you have to try something, you have to be something. No, it's that, man, just relax. Just relax. Those who are meant to be around you, let's use that analogy, they're going to accept you. They're going to accept you. Do they have to like everything about you to love you? No. No. No one is perfect. What's the point of being perfect? If you're perfect all the time, it's kind of boring. You're not meant to be perfect, although you are perfect with all your imperfections. The way Source sees you is you are perfection. So perfectly imperfect, you have no idea. And it all serves a part. What are we going as a collective? End of a lesson, graduation, moving on to the next level. We as humanity are moving on to the next level in terms of a consciousness. Really, it's as simple as that. It's a massive undertaking. If you are sitting here listening to this, you are part of it, right smack in the middle of it. And yes, apparently this is what you wanted to experience. I know, me too. I enjoy most of it, but there were some rough moments and patches, which, by the way, served me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. But would I do it again? Probably not. But anyway, if you are watching this, we're at an end of the cycle, whether you like it or not. If you continue to creating from a space of lack over and over again, you're going to go right back to where you started. However, you are much more conscious now than you have been in other lifetimes. And even in this lifetime, up until this point, you are much more conscious now. Because you are much more conscious, you can create a massive change. The massive change I'm talking about is not a massive change on the outside world. It's creating a massive change on the inside world, and everything you touch will change. Always remember, you are here for you. Everybody benefits. Is it selfish for you to be here out of you? Well, I guess unless you call God selfish, I mean, my God isn't selfish at all. So is it for you? Is it okay for you to have this experience for you? And why on earth would you want to have this experience for you? Now, how does that make any sense? If you think of it in terms of logical awareness, you're not going to get it. You have to go beyond that. Everything you have experienced in your life, you have on some level designed or pre-designed in your blueprint. Not everything was specified to a T. There's a lot of room for improvement and for movement, but if you're having this experience, this is meant to be part of your experience. Well, Joanna, what about the people that are suffering? That is always the hardest one for me to answer, because there's a part of me that says if I answer from a higher perspective, it's like I'm disrespecting other people's pain. No, I never, ever want to do that. But I have two spaces I'm looking from. From a strictly human perspective, why on earth would you choose to suffer? You wouldn't. The simple as that. You wouldn't. From a human's perspective, wouldn't do it. No way in hell. However, you are more than a human. The part of you that is more than a human sees your human experience as something that is very limited, but you are not limited. You are unlimited. And you know, from a higher perspective, that if you have designed for yourself challenges because you wanted to grow from it, you wanted to have an experience through these challenges, and then ultimately served you. So look, from a human perspective, you didn't choose it. Let's just say you had your hands in making that choice. Again, sometimes it's very difficult for the ego to grasp it, because people go through some horrendous times. And some people come to sacrifice their well-being so that humanity en masse can learn something, perhaps to have more compassion. Some souls choose to have that experience so that humanity can learn something amazing. Why would you choose suffering As a human, you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't. From a higher perspective, it's a different space. So I'm not telling you what you believe. This is where I believe. This is where I experienced when I had my conversations with Source. And it's not where I believe. I know that. I know it. Doesn't mean you have to know it. Doesn't mean you have to believe in it. But chances are there's some part of you that kind of sort of feels or thinks in the same way. Okay. Your lesson, our lesson right now, claim your sovereignty. Be your own person. There's incidentally a lot of healing that is required in our divine feminine. Snake representing Shakti or Kundalini, which represents massive transformation. Massive transformation often come hand in hand with what we call ego death. Everyone is going to go through it in their own different times and different timelines in very different ways. This is the season to let go of our limited ego. We're still going to have ego. We're not letting go of ego completely. Remember, ego is your flavor. You're here with a certain flavor. It's how our ego is in control of us, how our limited ego is in control of us, and how much our ego is in control of us. So when for example, for the longest time, my fear of abandonment used to be in control of me. I did everything so that I wouldn't, God forbid, feel that again. And that led me to a lot of pathways, which I didn't want to go through, but I needed to go through in order to understand the process. Only until I realized that I am my creator and I'm also my worst enemy did I decide to take responsibility for my part of my journey and say, I'm going to change. And that required me to go through ego death. And some of it was not very pleasant because a lot of what I was letting go is letting go of how I identified myself in negative ways. Without that, I didn't know who I was. I had to literally recreate a brand new identity, one which I now adhere to. At first, it's very confusing because you literally don't know who you are. When that happens, just know that what you're going through is a magnificent change, and that's to be celebrated and not feared. Last but not least, laugh with life. This card actually came in reverse, and when it came first, the word that I heard was, don't be so serious. I'm like, haha, we're talking about these big transformations, and now you're saying don't be so serious. So take it with a little bit of grain of salt. My team is not saying, oh, life isn't serious. They're inserting a little bit of humor to help us. It's not to laugh. It's not to diminish. It's not to invalidate, especially not invalidate, but it's to introduce some lighter frequency, some lighter vibration, because since we're going through it anyway, we might as well go through it in a way that feels better, not worse. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know how this has impacted you, what you heard from this message. I don't know how many minutes it is, but let me know how that was for you. We have our beautiful manifesting coloring mandala, which is designed to literally help to know yourself through coloring and through channeled statements. It's on Amazon, the link's down below. And we're also on Spotify. Our newest podcast is called Demystifying Divinity. So we're super excited about it. It's live on Apple and in Spotify. There's a link down below. And we talk about a whole bunch of different stuff, and we make spirituality a normal everyday thing. If you're into conversations, and we're actually doing the zodiacs for each month, that's kind of interesting too. And I'm going to be doing messages from spirit. So we did that for March, and we're going to do one for April. So if you're interested, and there's a whole bunch of other guests that we have. The link is down below. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.